Welcome back to Tokyo on Fire. The diplomatic schedule this month is totally packed. 3 state visits from the head of state from Brazil, the Philippines, and Jordan will be visiting Japan, and not only visiting with the prime minister, but also being received by the emperor. Michael, you're following this issue too? That's a lot of state visits.
Well, it's certainly an important set of state visits. The Brazilian one is really important in that there's going to be some kind of assumption that there's going to be knowledge transfer regarding hosting an Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of King Abdullah, Japan, or at least Mr. Abe, is probably going to try to explain what the new situation is regarding Japan's ability to serve in peacekeeping forces under this new security legislation.
King Abdullah's visit, it's the 9th since he's taken over the throne.
It's the 9th time that he's been around. He frequently comes here. It's not an unusual visit, but nevertheless, this is a new situation where Japan, to a certain extent, can expand its behavior as a peacekeeping force, which is something that the Mideast is always interested in.
Right. And then we have a third head of state go to hell, by the way, Michael.
Oh, well, President Duterte. And perhaps the doctor would like to tell us what the general view in the business world is of the Philippines, and how, I mean, the reporting has in Japanese news has been, well, frequent about things have changed.
Right. Well, especially since we are Americans, we're a little bit more sensitive to it. But I think the Japanese, there's a different dynamic that's going on here.
Well, actually, medias do not following this kind of issues. Probably many people do not know who will be coming in this month, and only people know about Putin from Russia. They expect that we may see some solution of the 4 islands in the northern territories. But basically, Japanese people are indifferent to
state visit.
State visit.
But in the case of Duterte, I'm watching NHK News in the morning, and every time he opens his mouth and says something nasty about the United States, it's big news here.
Sure. Everybody loves to tweak the nose of the United States, and he's taken that on as a full-time job.
Well, he needs to be taken seriously, because we're talking about the South China Sea and the announcement of the end of, I don't want the U.S.-Japan patrols here.
No more
He's
alliance.
sort of the Hugo Chavez, of course, of Southeast Asia. And I think he will be the most memorable state visitor in that, of course, he's controversial about what he's saying. He also is close to 80% favorability in the Philippines in the context of a society where several thousand have been killed, drug dealers and vigilantes. It's been a bloodbath there.
Right.
So I look forward to seeing how he interacts with Prime Minister Abe in addition to the meeting with the emperor, because he's his own guy and he's sort of got a Putin swagger to him.
And a little bit of a Trumpism, too.
Sure he does. And this is, it's brought a lot of attention to the Philippines. And I don't think we should discount this country in comparison to, say, a Putin visit, because he's going to be loud and proud, and he's got his population behind him.
Well, the issue really is with the South China Seas and how he is going to figure out an alliance that works for him. Apparently right now, he's holding in the balance this ongoing alliance with the United States as opposed to working with China and Russia.
Well, for Japanese government, I think the most important thing is the U.S.-Japanese relations and the security treaty. So, well, whatever happens.
But in the case of the visit here, the issue will be that Japan is providing Coast Guard, its own Coast Guard vessels, to the Philippines as a part of this concept that we're all taking part in this very quiet containment of China. But the Philippines is suddenly, well, thank you for the ships, but we're not on your team anymore. That's going to be very difficult, I think, for the government.
And not only that, but he's meeting with Xi Jinping in China before the visit to Japan.
That's right. Taking
so they were able to get him on the
businessmen
calendar.
with them.
That's
a huge
right.
delegation.
Huge. It's just...
So it looks like the winds of change are beginning to blow, and losing the Philippines, especially when so much is happening in the South China Seas, could impact, the Japan relationship as well.
Well, for Japan, that we have a Senkaku Island problem, right? So in that sense, we have to strengthen the power in the to the security of the area. So I don't know, but how to what extent we have to be involved in that issues. I mean, in terms of the Philippine or some other, say the sea. How do you call that?
The South China Sea.
China Sea. So that is of course, our interest. But it's sort of not direct. But to avoid the influence of the China in that area so strong, so we have to. It's a sort of a difficult point. It's difficult to how much we should do.
Right.
We have to keep the communication with the United States. What extent they think Japan should be involved in that issue.
Right. With Brazil, it looks like they're going to talk about, with the Prime Minister, some technology transfer, perhaps selling some of the nuclear technology that the Japanese have developed.
Yes, it's kind of ironic. Since we can't build nuclear power plants here, let's build them all around the world.
Makes sense to me.
It's has been the Abe administration trip around the world. Wherever Mr. Abe's plane goes down, suddenly there's a contract for Mitsubishi or for Hitachi for a nuclear power plant in this, that, or the other country.
Well, we tried submarines. That didn't work.
Well, there has been a significant effort by the Abe administration to sell nuclear technology. First of all, because Japan does have advanced nuclear technology, but also because the nuclear industry right now here in Japan is not going anywhere. There's no market for new power plants, even though we've reached the effective lifetime limits of many of Japan's nuclear facilities. They should be building new ones, but there's no community in the country that will accept them. So Mr. Abe gets on a plane and takes the company representatives with him.
Right.
And in this case, that's one of the things that's going to be discussed with Brazil.
Okay. Other big ticket items include railway systems, airplanes.
Whatever it is that he can sell. He's always called himself.
He's a salesman.
He said, I am Japan's #1 salesman. And that was part of his initial push of Abenomics coming into office. And that part of his program is still continuing.
I don't know if anyone saw the interview. He did a sit-down with Reuters several weeks ago when he was in New York for the UN meeting. And he started out by saying, I am Shinzo Abe, not Mario. And I am fighting, though, like Mario, for the Japanese economy. And then he went on to say, I'm going to prioritize, make 3 points. It's the economy, the economy, the economy. And I used it in class with my students. And I said, so what does he think is most important? Pretty obvious. As far as Japan's peace brand, which we've talked before about, I think the planes and the bullet trains, it's a big part of the selling point for Japan. When you get into wartime technology, nuclear technology, that sort of puts Japan on an uneven surface in terms of how the people view themselves. I'm going to Hiroshima tomorrow for a peace and marketing and business conference, looking at the Hiroshima brand as a global brand. And it is about abolition of war and the non-use of nuclear power. So,
Which was kind of the theme of Barack Obama's speech there.
sure.
Right.
And also the students and many Japanese people believe that Obama apologized, and he did not in the speech, but they gave him that benefit of the doubt. So that tells you about how the Japanese citizenry views itself, and there's a disconnect between the society in Japan and the government of Japan on this issue, because the people by and large are not in favor of bringing back the nuclear power. So it is, of course, going abroad. We did the same thing with tobacco 20 years ago when the tobacco companies were seeing the decline in smoking. They just took it abroad and got people hooked on cigarettes overseas.
Well, one thing the Japanese government tries to sell weapons or nuclear technology to the other countries is that to save their industries in that military industry, for example. So Japanese weapons are so expensive because all of them are domestic, except the F-15 was that kind of U.S. airplanes. So it's very expensive because we produce it in the country. If you sell these things to the other countries, well, it becomes cheaper
Right.
than previous. So that is only the way. I think this is the one big reason why Japanese government try to sell them. So the nuclear technology too.
Also involves...
You cannot use it in Japan. But you can sell it.
Sure.
as
And that's a
technology.
very rational actor, realist
It is a
theory
rational,
model of
yeah.
international relations.
That's true.
Dr. Nagahisa, you're very close to what's going on in Japanese politics and the political happenings. At the diplomatic level, what kind of scorecard would you give the Prime Minister in his outreach to the rest of the world at the diplomatic level? I mean, we have 3 state visits just this month, but it seems to me that he is really starting to do a good job at the diplomatic level.
Well, I think many people think that he is very successful so far. But after Putin, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. If he can have some a solution between Japan and Russia, he will be supported more.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, he's putting an awful lot of effort in it, and I think the expectation is beginning to rise that he will come out with some sort of a peace treaty.
Oh, yes, but I don't know whether or not he can make it. It's a really tough negotiation. We spent more than 50 years for that.
Sure.
Right? So what is a rational solution of the territories? To cut the 2 areas? I don't know. 2 islands? No, it's too small.
That's right.
So what is the solution? I can't imagine it. So while it is it could be a great opportunity for the Abe administration, but it could be a bad opportunity for him to get popularity in this country.
Right. Diplomatic machinations in Tokyo with the visit of 3 heads of state in the next 20 days. It's very active. We're going to continue to watch this and report it to you.